When I was 30 years old, I was working as the music director for a pretty decent size church in the Hartford, Connecticut area. And I really believed that this was what I was supposed to do with my life and it was what I was called to do for the time being. And I remember Father's Day 2009, everything in my life kind of changed. And I know that sounds super dramatic, but I can trace it back to this one meeting that I had. I had reached out to a guy named Ross, and he was out in Colorado Springs, Colorado, doing basically the job that I had at a church, but a church that was like 50 times bigger, like tens of thousands of people, a very, very well known church. And this guy had this blend of creativity and organizational leadership, and he was able to speak and write, and I just so multi-talented. And in some ways, I saw myself in him. And so I wrote him an email and I said, "Hey, you don't know who I am at all, but if you'd be willing to spend an hour with me, I would fly out to Colorado to talk to you." I was so hungry for mentorship. I was so hungry for guidance. And I was so hungry to get it from somebody who kind of walked down a path that I thought I might go down. I think all of us have these mentors and these people we look up to in life, but there's nothing quite like finding somebody who you can see your future self in a little bit, right? In a little bit of a way. And so I went out to Colorado Springs. He's like, "Hey, come out this particular weekend. We're doing a conference all week. Why don't you stay for the conference? I'll meet you on Sunday in between the services or whatever." The guy was really nice. That was really kind of him to do that. A lot of people would not do this, meet with a complete stranger just between services, like, you know, while they're doing their thing. And so we stole about 40 minutes between the services. He ran right off the stage and met me in the office. I went up there and I was absolutely blown away. You want to talk about meeting somebody on the top of the mountain, like proverbially speaking? Well, this guy literally had his office with a view of the mountains. Like I saw the Rocky Mountains outside his office window, and it was just like incredible. And I was just like, wow, this guy has got everything that somebody in my position at that time could want. He's got leadership, he's got influence, they're impacting a lot of people, and he's really using his gifts and his talents. And I just thought it was really, really cool. We finished our meeting and I went back to the hotel and like this thought hit me because I was like, 30, 31 at the time. And I was like, if everything goes right in your life, in 15 years, would you want this guy's life? And to my complete surprise, I said to myself, no. And what's even more weird is that I'm the age now that he was when I met him. That was the first time in my life that I had that kind of realization that I was spending so much of my time and energy trying to climb this mountain, a career path, and I realized it wasn't the one I wanted to climb. My life hasn't really turned out the way that I thought. I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think all of us have these narratives in our lives that are running through our mind that we believe is the standard by which we're supposed to measure how our lives turn out. I was an 80s kid, grew up mostly in New Jersey. And when I think back to the things I was exposed to, television shows and going to church at a young age, there was a narrative in my mind that I was supposed to, get married, have 2.5 kids, have a dog, you know. I've got a dog, but not 2.5 kids. And my life just hasn't turned out that way. And I think that that can jar people like a lot. It's jarred me a lot at different times in my life in different seasons. I'm now 46 years old. I am single, divorced, no kids. I've worked for myself for over 10 years. I have a decent following and a good reputation with the people that I work with. I've been in online marketing and coaching and branding and kind of got in the space before it became what it did today, right? With all the content creation. And so Early on, I did a lot of podcasts and just wrote a couple best-selling books, helping people share their stories, tell their stories. I feel it's time to share a couple things from my life, my stories. I think if you have ever felt a tug or felt like you're putting on a jacket or a shirt that doesn't quite fit anymore, right? It might be a little older, like it might still fit, but it's old and it just doesn't fit right. It doesn't feel the way it used to. Or you're putting on someone else's armor, if you will, or putting on someone else's uniform, if you will. You have to learn to listen to that and honor it and have it just sit with you. One of the things I'm able to acknowledge now as an older man in seeing myself as a 30-year-old is how lonely I was, like really lonely. I buried myself in work, and I realized that I've always done that. I've always buried myself in work, and maybe you're the same way. And it's understandable because at work, if you're good at what you do, you can actually kind of control the outcome in a lot of ways. You put this in, you get this out, right? And that's what a lot of people who are good at what they do experience. Whereas in relationships, in sometimes it feels like working out, it feels like studying for a test. You put so much effort in and very little like in return. It can feel like that, right? Relationships. So you work so hard and not know what you're going to get. And in work and in business, I think it's a little bit more predictable sometimes. It doesn't mean that it's always predictable, but it's a little bit more manageable. And I did that a lot when I was in my 30s, and I still do it now in my mid 40s. When I was going through that season in my life, I really just wished that I even knew of someone who was wrestling with those kinds of questions. I think that's why I was so attracted to Ross and to reach out to him. I was just hungry for someone who felt a little bit like me. And I think all of us are like that. I still feel this way now at my age. And if you feel like everyone who's successful on the outside, quote unquote, or everyone who looks like they've got their act together really feels that way, you'd be wrong. Even at this age now, I find myself looking for people who I may end up like in some way. And in an odd way, it's even more compounded because I can look at sort of my life circumstances and say, well, I don't know a lot of 60 something year old guys. I'm just going to do 15 years, right? Because it seems like I'm like right in the middle of that, right at 46. So maybe I say something like 14, 15 years later, it's like, I don't know a lot of 60-year-old guys that I can see myself as. Like, I'm divorced, no kids, got this really unorthodox business. I don't know that there are a lot of people who get that. And I realized that you can't really wait to find somebody who's just like you or where you think you're going to end up because those goalposts will move. I guarantee that in your life. It'll change over time. But I'm hoping that maybe by putting videos like this out, somebody will say, hey, Mike kind of reminds me a little bit of where I might want to go. And I'm hoping that by sharing some of these stories, I can kind of offset that feeling that can so cripple so many of us, the feeling like we're really, really alone. One of the most powerful things I think we can tell another human being is, I see you. I see you. And I'm going to roll the dice here and say that if you've ever felt like you want to find yourself or a version of yourself somewhere out there, you may not have felt very seen as a child or as a young person or even now in your life. And I want to encourage you that need, that acknowledgement, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a completely valid thing. So if it helps at all, I know this is a video medium, but I just want to tell you that I see you. And I hope that you know that there are folks out there who have felt this exact way. Long story short, after I met Ross, I resigned from my position about 2 years later, at the height of my game, if you will, in that world. And I left and I had honestly, no idea what I was going to do. And my whole world changed. Like, really, it really changed. I stepped away from that position at the end of 2011, moved back to New Jersey from Connecticut. Yet I was married at the time. And my wife at the time, ex-wife now, was studying for the MCAT. And so we had very different priorities in life. And I just started working, got a job at a company I used to work for in my 20s, right? An educational company. We had stayed in touch and they brought me back on board. And then long story short, they eventually asked me to help them with their marketing. And so I sort of stumbled into this field of marketing where I realized I was really good at it. I had a knack for it. A lot of the skills that I had in my previous work life carried over really well into this. And I just studied voraciously. I look back at those years being in my early to mid 30s. I just devoured everything, and if you're in that position in life right now where you're just like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but you find something that you want to learn about, just go learn it. Just immerse yourself in it. I still have the books that I read like on my phone and on my Kindle. And I'm like, gosh, look how many books I read. Like, look how much knowledge I was like saturating myself in. It's kind of wild. And I look at that young man and I say, wow, Mike, really, really impressive. You were so hungry. You're so dedicated, pushing through. Like you're willing to push past these comfort zones. And if that's you today, I would say you're so impressive. You really are. If you think about the people you know in your life right now, there are probably very few from this previous life that you had who are that passionate and that hungry to learn about whatever it is that you're learning about. And so I just see you. I see you. You're not going to regret that. Whatever you're studying and immersing yourself in, no one will ever be able to take that from you. Because it's in here, not just in your head, it's in your soul. So I see that. I see the work you're putting in. And the results might not be there right away. They might not be here the way that you want. I experienced that many, many times. I had a lot of starts and stops in my life, including this YouTube channel. But I see you. And I want to encourage you to keep on going. Do not give up. Do not give up. That's the one thing I can look back on my life and just say, I'm so grateful. I wrote myself a letter, that guy in my 30s, and I say, thank you for not giving up, even when I was really hard, lonesome. Just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean that you don't get lonely or that you don't feel, it doesn't mean that you're, encouraged to do these things. And that's not to throw shade on anybody. What I'm saying is don't wait for someone else to come and complete you or feel like you got to have that part of your life figured out in order for you to move forward. And I would also say that if you are in a situation where you're in a relationship, in a partnership, and a marriage, and you're looking to grow, don't stop because the other person might not be encouraging you. Just keep growing. Just keep being who you are. That shirt or that sweater or that jacket you put back on that might not feel comfortable, that's normal. It means you're growing. It means that you're maturing. So don't give up. When you keep going, you actually create a body of work and a track record for yourself that you are absolutely 100% going to lean on in your future. There are days that I get down, even still. I don't really know why I'm doing what I'm doing sometimes. And I wonder if my work matters. Look, we're all human beings, right? It's all normal to feel those things. And when that fear sets in, like, hey, this isn't going to work out, or your business is going to crash, or you're not going to know what to do, or like how can you continue this pace and how can you continue life the way that you are? Like the fear sets in. And there have been many times I've said to myself, you've always been all right. You've always figured it out. And you're wiser and you're smarter and you have a track record. Like the evidence literally is so much more in favor of you figuring things out and things working out than not. And the way you earn that, put that weight on that side of the scale is that you just keep learning, you keep growing your awareness and you don't give up. And that doesn't mean that you don't sleep, doesn't mean that you don't rest. It means that you learn yourself and your own rhythms and you stop allowing other people to define those kind of things for you. You decide that I am going to take care of myself because I'm the only person who's always going to be with myself. I'll end with this. About a year and a half ago, I went to a friend's daughter's first birthday party. My friend's daughter's first birthday party. And he asked us to write a little note to his daughter in this card, this kind of logbook. And he's really into personal development, personal growth. That's why we're friends. And I wrote in there to his daughter, I said, love yourself. It's who you'll have to spend the rest of your life with. And I would echo that to you. And that can look like so many different things. But one way to do that is to just not give up. Allow yourself to be seen. Give yourself credit for the work that you've been already doing. I see you. Hope to see you on the next video.